We got 5 cheap paints, 1 sleepy tiger boy, and a partridge in a pear tree. Let's paint! Hey little artists, welcome to another 5-color challenge where I take 5 extremely cheap paints and try to recreate to the best of my ability a painting. To show you you can do a lot even with a little, and to hopefully inspire you to get out there and create something. So I got my 5 paints here, I got my canvas, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. All right, first things first.
Beautiful.
So we're here, I have everything all set up, and I set up a top view camera. Look at this beautiful craftsmanship. It may not be the prettiest, but it's gonna work. You're gonna get a great view of everything that I'm doing. And yeah, I think we're all set. We got the boy with us, we got some paints and canvas, so let's just dive right in. Okay, so as you can see, we're all set up. I remembered to put down plastic this time so I didn't get paint all over my coffee table. But I just have a simple glass of water or a jar, napkin, a plate from my cupboard to use as a palette. We got our paints, some paint brushes. Here are my cheap brushes that I bought last time, but if you remember, I misplaced a bunch of them. They just disappeared. I have no idea what happened. So I've dug up some of my old brushes that you can see here. They're all synthetic, of course, because we are going to be using acrylic. And if you don't know why you should be using synthetic brushes for acrylic, go ahead and watch my video. I'll put a link, 5 tips, I think, for acrylic painting. But anyways, we're gonna start with the underdrawing. Now, again, in that video I just mentioned, I explained why you should never use you should never use pen, pencils, or any type of marker to do your underdrawing because it will bleed through even if you paint over it. Over time, it will show. So the best thing that you can use is either fine charcoal, or what I like to do is just use a bit of my darkest paint that I'm going to use in the painting. You'll see why. So I think my darkest color is this purple, really. I mean, the ultramarine blue is pretty dark. Actually, you know what? See, this is why it's important to think ahead. I'm actually gonna do a wash like I did before. And so I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm gonna do the wash in this purple, really. I was gonna do it in the dark blue, but I think I'm gonna do it with the purple. So for my underdrawing, I'm going to choose the blue, the ultramarine blue. So we'll go ahead, just get some blue going. Wet my brush. So since this is an underdrawing, you don't want to go too thick with the paint because mostly this is just to get a rough drawing down. And if you use a lot of thick paint, you're just gonna have to wait for it to dry and it's just gonna take a lot longer. So I just use a thin amount of paint, getting my brush really wet and just kind of getting the paint out here. You can see how it's like thinner and wetter. And I'll even go back and like get some more water to make it even thinner. And so in this painting, which I have here for my reference, it's broken up into 3s, which everything, all medium. If you need to know the rules of 3s, I also have a video of it somewhere in my channel. But so I'm just gonna draw like where things break up. So you see the hills are kind of in the bottom third. So I'm just gonna do a rough line like here, making sure that I don't cross it. And I'll show you how to erase these lines because I'm mostly gonna erase them. And I'm gonna do here because I kind of don't, because there's a bit of sky in this. And so I don't wanna cross this. So I want my mountains to be this big, and I want, actually, you know what? I think that I put this too high, which is fine. So the good thing about using paint as your underdrawing is to get rid of it. You can erase it. Just get a new brush that's clean, get some water, and then just come in and get this all wet. And as you can see, it's mostly gone anyways, but if I take this napkin, ta-da, look at that, it's magic. So that's, again, the most useful reason that I use this paint is you can just erase it, it's gone. Because I did that way too high. I think the mountain, because I want the mountains to be the biggest thing. Obviously my canvas, the canvas that this person painted on was much wider, so mine's a little like squished. So my hills won't take up as much space, but that's okay because I want the mountains to really be the focus of this. So these are my thirds. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna start you know, outlining. Again, I don't have a lot of room because my canvas isn't big enough, but that's okay. So he has a hill coming up here. And you can just sketch all this out. And again, you can erase everything you don't like. So he has like another little hill here. And then there's this. I'll go a little bit above the line. But again, as you can see, it's really thin. I'm not worried about getting like thick paint on because this is just an underdrawing. And we need it to dry before we do the wash. Otherwise it'll just rip it all away. Wipe it away, kind of like I just did erasing. So you kind of don't want to use too thin a paint, but at the same time you don't want to go too thick. And you really need to let it dry. Kind of running out of room here for the little river, but that's okay. Okay, so we got our hills. I'm not gonna do the trees just because those can just be, they're the darkest part of the painting, so they can just be layered on top. But I am gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take a bit of water and I'm just gonna erase these lines that I don't need anymore. Again, you didn't have to do this. I just did it so I can kind of control the spacing. Actually, you know what? I have extra. I always have extra napkins. I think I'm gonna use this one as my erasing one now. Now that I've started doing that, so okay. We got the bottom. I think that looks pretty good for the bottom. Now again, I'm gonna have to squish the mountains because I don't have as much space as this person does, but I know where I want the mountains to end, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start. Like this is the highest peak right here, and I'll go a little bit. I'll go a little bit into. Again, it's not going to look as vertical just because again my canvas is a different proportion, but that's okay. Yeah, and then he has this that goes all the way over there, and he's got little. It doesn't have to be. I mean, again, I'm just using this as reference, so it doesn't have to be, you know, exactly like this artist's. It can be, you know, you can have a little bit of variance. I mean, it's your painting. Do whatever you want. When I used to teach painting, people were like, "Do I have to do this?" I was like, "No. They were paying for the class. It's your painting. It's your paint. It's your canvas. You can do whatever you want." You know, I always told them that they could, like, if you want to draw, like, if we were drawing, like, I don't know, a flower, and I was like, if you want to draw a raccoon, go for it. Like, I will still help you draw that raccoon or paint that raccoon. Yeah, just go for it. Yeah, I'm kind of running out of room here, as you can see. It's unfortunate. So I'm going to have to cut basically the mountain short, but that's okay. Again, I just don't have as much room as the artist had, but that's fine. Again, just keeping it very... I want to keep this empty space up here like they did. See, look how like high it is. It's like matching. So it's not quite right. I think I might get rid of, honestly, this thing and change it just to fit my canvas. And that's okay. Like I said, I'm just using this as a reference. I'm not going for an exact copy. So we'll go ahead and we'll just freestyle it. I do like the way the artist has like this, they have like an empty space here, and then they have their mountain like back here that's like disappearing into the, I do like that, so I am gonna keep that. Ooh, it's a little wet. I should have let it dry. See, when it's really wet, you can kind of see that's like spreading out into like the little textures of the canvas. So I should have waited till it was a little bit more dry, or like pat dry it a little bit, but that's fine. And then we'll go ahead and yeah, so I'm just gonna freehand this. Don't go dark on me. I'm not gonna add that extra little bump. Maybe I'll add it down here. And then this continues, and then we will still get a little bit of this going. There we go. Again, it's not exactly like his, but I just don't have the space. And then the clouds, I don't really need the clouds. They're just gonna be, you know, they're just clouds. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we gotta wait for this to dry a bit so that when we do the wash, we don't, you know, smear everything and the lines don't disappear. So we're gonna go ahead and just give it about, I don't know, 5 minutes to dry. Again, it's really thin, so it shouldn't take that long. Okay, so now that our underdrawing has had time to dry, I just left it for about 5 minutes. You can also blow on it or fan it, anything just to make it dry. So we're gonna go ahead and do a wash. Now, if you don't know what a wash is, again, you can watch my video, or I can just tell you really quick. So on a canvas, it always has a bunch of little bumpily textures, which you can kind of see peeking through the paint that's already drying. And so what happens when acrylic paint dries is that it's a plastic, so it constricts and those little bumpilies poke through when your painting is drying. So the way to get rid of that is to do a wash, which is a thin layer of color that you put on the canvas first before you start painting, so that when the canvas pokes through, it already has like a tint to it. So you want to choose a color that matches the overall tone of your painting, which is why in the beginning I said, I think I'm going to do a purple. Now, I don't think the artist did this because I'm trying hard to look on my phone, but it doesn't, I can't, it looks like watercolor to me sometimes, and then it doesn't look like Sorry, my camera skipped there for a second. It looks like watercolor to me sometimes, and then it doesn't. So I think it is watercolor. So colors are gonna be a little bit different, but anyways, for me, I wanna do a purple. I want the whole painting to have a purple tone to it. So I'm gonna do a purple wash. And I'm gonna use this purple paint that I used for my Gengar, just as in my previous video. And for this, I'm gonna use my biggest flat brush that I have. There are bigger ones than this. This is just the biggest one I have. And I'm kind of going to do the same thing as I did with the underdrawing. Really thin. You don't want thick. We're not coating it. We're just getting a nice tint layer over it. Also, you don't want to do it too thick because otherwise you won't be able to see your underdrawing. Also about your underdrawing, since we're introducing water back to the underdrawing, it will start to erase it and blur it. So you don't want to spend too much time in one area. You kind of just want to go over it and maybe you let it dry for a bit, but I'm kind of doing the same thing, as you can see, getting a bunch of water and kind of just dissolving the paint a bit. And then I'm just going to go over the entire thing like this. But as you can see, I don't want anywhere where it's like really thick paint. That's not what I'm doing. I'm more better ways, like I heard one of my painting teachers said, like, you're kind of scratching in the color, and because it sounds like you're really pushing and it sounds like you're scratching it in. So that's what you're gonna do. Again, you don't want to spend too much time in an area, otherwise they'll start to your underdrawing, I'm sorry, will start to disappear. So just go ahead, and also this is a good time to, I'm not gonna do it just because because I'm not gonna hang up this painting or keep it really, but if you are, you kind of want to paint to the edges if you're not going to put it in a frame. So it just makes it easier, again, so you don't have to put it in a frame. If you paint all the way to the edges, it just makes the painting look better when you hang it up on the wall. So if you're going to hang it up on the wall, just remember to, every time you paint, just paint over the edges as well. Again, I'm going to skip that because I'm not going to hang this painting up, so there's no real reason for me to do that. But anyways, we're going to go and just cover this entire painting with color. Again, what we're doing here is getting rid of the white tint or tone or little bumpilies that will poke through, so that when they do poke through, it'll be purple and it will match the painting, the tone of the painting better. You're gonna go through and this is why it was important to do the underdrawing in a dark color, like your darkest color. So we're just gonna go through, and this is a good reason to have the plastic down, because you can't see it probably there, but there's like splatter everywhere as I, whip the brush around. So if you're painting on a flat surface and not on a canvas, even if you are painting on a canvas, you should probably put plastic or something down, because you will be throwing paint everywhere. Like this is all has purple paint thrown all over it. I'm actually gonna move my phone and move these over here, because it is getting paint everywhere. So just a little tip, might not want to do it on your table or something without putting down some protection. So again, very easy, very simple technique. Again, people have been doing this for a long time. I mean, even with oil paintings, I'm not sure they would have called it a wash, but some of the really old like Renaissance paintings, like ones that are unfinished or ones we use technology to see underneath it, you can see that they did, especially the skin tones, they did all, like the entire painting in one tone of green, and then they went over it with the other paints. But the reason they did that was, again, to give, the color would peek through underneath and give it a nice tone. And that's why if you look at old Renaissance paintings, their skin has kind of like a greenish tone to it almost if you keep looking at it. And they did that because they thought, after studying, you know, skin and people, they thought like people kind of do have like a greenish bluish tint to them. Actually, people have a bunch of different tints underneath their skin tones, but yeah, so that's why. So this has been going on for a long time, but in modern days we do it, especially if we're doing acrylic paintings, just because the paint will constrict because it is a plastic, and the little texture of the canvas will always poke through. Now, of course, if you're not painting on a canvas, you're painting on something like a smooth surface, probably not as important. But if you're gonna paint on canvas, it definitely is important. It just will, and it's a tiny little thing that will enhance your painting tremendously. It really, really does. So as you can see, I'm mostly done. I'm done, actually. Now, again, if I were you, I would paint the edges as well, because if you're gonna hang it up. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So you just wanna go ahead and kind of like the underdrawing, we wanna stop and give it like 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, maybe longer, depending on how much water you use, just to let this dry before we start painting. Okay, so I let this dry for about 10 to 15 minutes. You can still see it's a little bit wet, like I just touched it and that's coming up, but that's okay, because in all paintings we're gonna follow the rules. So the rule of painting is you wanna start back to front, dark to light. And what I mean by that is you wanna start with whatever's in the back. So in this case, there's the sky, and then there's the mountains on top of it, and then there's these hills on top of that. So the front that you want to paint last is the hills right here. And dark to light is basically what that means. You want to start with your darker colors, then add your lighter colors on top of them. Because painting's all about layering, at least only with acrylic and oil, not with watercolor. Watercolor is staining, not really painting, so it's a different thing. But with acrylic and oil, it's all about layering, getting those layers right, letting them dry, and so forth and whatever. So for this, just because this is still wet, that's fine, because I'm gonna start with the sky, which is mostly dry. So for the sky, as you can see, they've used various blues. I only have these blues and of course my white. So I'm gonna try to do my best here with that, but I really want to start with this lighter blue. Now I know I just said start with darker, but the sky, this painting is going to be a little bit weird because most of the painting is white because it's snow. So the rule is going to be a little bit different. Yeah, so forth. So we'll see. Again, the normal rule is dark to light, but this is all white, so it's gonna be a bit different. I am actually gonna, you know what? I am gonna start with the blue, which I do have some blue here. I was thinking about how I'm going to do this. I think I'm just gonna start just kind of like pretty much building out where I want the clouds and where I want the darkest part. This is gonna be, it's gonna be interesting because we have to involve white and everything, and white is such a delicate color, whereas I'm not going to want to put white on here until everything is kind of dry, because it will just take on, it just overpowers colors. Again, also if you're painting, remember to, you know, continue this to the edge because it'll just look better. So I'm gonna go ahead and just try to figure this out. I know there's a blue in there, there's a lighter blue, and there is a white. I am gonna mix a bit of the white in there, just because, just like in all paintings, just like I did my last painting, or even like how I painted the Gengar in my previous video, you're gonna have to paint multiple layers to get the color you want. You're not just gonna paint blue here and be like it's done, because as it dries, the color will dull over time, so you're never going to get the color you want unless you do multiple layers. I'm at least going to do 2. I'll probably do 1 layer and then I'll repaint over that to get the color I like, and then I may do a third layer for like detail. Now, the more sophisticated your paintings, the more layers you're gonna do, unless you're doing like Bob Ross style, where he was just using pallets and pallets of thick paint and just slathering it on there. But even if you do that, even if you use thick paints, especially oil, over time, the color will dull immensely. That's why like painters in the Renaissance, when they were painting something, sometimes they would paint it and let it dry for like weeks before adding another layer, because I think there's some like crazy statistic or whatever where it's like, depending on the color will depend on how long. With oil, with acrylic, this is plastic, it dries really quickly. But with oil, it can take browns take like a week to dry, reds take like a month or something, and they're never really actually dry. It's just that, because it's oil, it's just the top layer is dried and solidified, but if you scratch it, it'll be wet underneath, even like old Renaissance paintings. But anyways, we're not talking about that. We're talking about acrylic here. So yeah, I'm gonna go in and just, I kind of like this look of like these angular kind of matching the slope of the mountain to the back. So I'm gonna go and just copy that because I really liked, that was intentional by this artist. And we're gonna go ahead and get some blues going in there and see what they do. Again, it's gonna be kind of interesting because I'm gonna have to add white to all this, and so it's gonna be, we're gonna see how that works. I'm not quite sure, but it's a sky, it's clouds. I mean, most clouds look like crazy paintings anyway, so it's not like it needs to be, you know, super perfect by any means. And it's funny, you can actually see they brought the blue into here. Yeah, I'll just put a little blue there. I'll just put a little blue there, match the sky color. And yeah, I guess the rest is really just white. That's gonna, So again, this is gonna be difficult because white will overpower colors and just instantly turn everything into like a pastel, which is not, it is kind of pastel-y a little bit, but that's not really what we're going for. So we have to be really careful with this. I do want a bit, the reason I'm putting white now and not letting it dry a bit is because there is obviously some mixture. So I want to go ahead and just kind of start the little bit of the process of mixing. I keep doing swirls because just to like make it more like clouds are. And again, this is why you want to go back to light, because like I can dip into this mountain and it doesn't really matter because I'm going to paint over the mountain next. So I really want to keep some parts really white, and I really want to keep some parts a little bit mixed. Like over here, it's really mixed. So we'll just go ahead and start with the white. Kind of just getting the colors going. And now I'm gonna go, again, I'm a little bit hesitant to go crazy with the white in here, but I will do a little bit, mostly because this is my first layer of paint for the sky that I'm gonna do. And so I'm a little bit okay with it getting a little like pastel-y out here, because I know I'm gonna put another layer of paint on top of this. So I'm a little okay with that. Again, clouds are kind of like, I mean, well, you've seen clouds. They're kind of, not really, they're formless, so it kind of can be as crazy as you want. So like, that looks nice. I like that. Doesn't quite look like how he's doing it, but I really like texture, like I mentioned in my previous painting. I really like texture and like not defined lines, mostly because I have shaky hands. I do not have the hands of a surgeon, so I like broad open brush style. That's just what appeals to me, and so that's what I'm gonna do. But yeah, that looks pretty good for a first layer. Now I'm gonna go ahead and start on the mountains. Again, I know I said start from back to front, but mostly I'm doing that because, like I said earlier, I'm gonna put another layer of paint on the clouds. So if I put one layer here, then I put another layer on top and it works out the same. The reason I'm doing this is to save time. You don't have to do this. You can just wait for this to dry, then do your second layer and then start on the mountains if you want. But I'm gonna go ahead and work on the mountains just because I need to save time. purely for time saving reasons, but you don't have to do that. You can take as much time. I really like to paint like this and just like have the TV on and watch stuff. That's what I like. So in this, you can see that it's kind of like a purple. Now, I think my purple's kind of dark, but there also is this like kind of pink in there. So I'm going to use the color that I used for the Gengar's tongue. I'm reusing paints that I did, obviously, to save money, even though these are like $1. Gotta save where you can save. I think I'm gonna keep this brush, even though it's big. I kind of wanted this to be blocky, so I think I'm gonna keep the big brush. We'll see how it works. If it doesn't, I can always change it. I do want to test real quick what happens when I mix the white with the purple. I just want to see how pastel-y it gets. And you can do this. You can test if you're like me and not just using straight paint that you want. You can see that's really, yeah, no, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. We don't like that. So I guess I'm just gonna have to, I know it's not gonna be the exact purple that this guy used, even though I really like the purple the guy used in the painting, but that's okay. So we're gonna go ahead and just get our first layer. You'll notice as I'm going, like you can see the texture, the bumps I've been telling you about popping through, which is exactly why we're gonna do multiple layers. Because if you just do one layer, I see a lot of people who are beginning painters and don't know what they're doing, and they go on canvases and they paint it, and then it dries and it just looks like this, like unfinished. That's why you just need to do multiple layers. Painting is all about layers. It's all about layers, 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 layers. I'm gonna go ahead and again, I'm gonna do the same thing, start from dark to light. So I am gonna put white on this. I'm gonna kind of have to remember where everything was, because I am gonna paint over everything, but that's okay. We will know. We know. We'll remember. Members. But yeah, same type of thing. You're just gonna want to go ahead and block in your colors. That's really all we're doing right here. Just getting our first base of blocked in colors so that we can continue to build a base. A base. Okay. And this also has a bit of that down here, and then bit of that, and maybe I'm gonna switch to my smaller brush just to get like these detail parts. Oops, I got a bit of white. Oh no. Oh no. That's okay. Again, this is why you kind of want to wait for things to dry. Unless, like, obviously people who have been painting for years can know how to like work things and blend things. But if you're a beginner, which this channel is for beginners or people who have never painted before, you just want to take it slow, let it dry. It's no big deal. No big deal. So this is mostly white out here, except for a few, like, kind of like how it like disappears into the back here. But yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll actually even add a bit of this pink in here just to get it going. Not sure how much I like that. How does this look mixed with white? Yeah, it looks better. Looks better, but not great. But I do want a little bit of that pinkish in here, so I'm just gonna kind of start it in places. Again, this is going to be underneath, so it's not super important. We can add it here because I'm going to go in and add the white. There is a bit of blue in there, which I'm concerned about how I'm going to get the blue in. Slightly concerned, but not too concerned. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill in, oops. Again, good reason to have plastic down. So you don't get paint everywhere like me. Let's go ahead and clean. So again, another helpful tip. Remember, just like in my video I said before, when you're cleaning your brush, it's the water that cleans the brush, not the napkin. The napkin is just for moisture control. So as you can see, it's clean. And then I go in here to get the water out. And you can see my brush is mostly clean. It has tints of paint from the water, but you can see my napkin is mostly clean, which your napkin should be too. So I'm gonna take the white and kind of just start going in here. Again, I'm gonna pick up a bit of the color, but I kind of want to do that in some areas. And that's okay. Again, this is just the under layer, the first, you know, base layer. So it doesn't have to be perfect. What you're looking for is just getting a good foundation to work with, to build upon. That's all we're doing here. Again, you can use various brushes. I'm just using the one brush because I'm kind of lazy. Honestly, because I'm lazy. Now I'm gonna attempt to add some blue to this. So I'm just gonna put some blue and then I'm gonna wash my brush. Gonna wash it good, come back with some white and really just like mix that blue in a bit. Just so there's some blue hints in there. You know, it looks nice. It looks really nice. Oops, I should have done that. I should have done some thinking and done it over here where there's gonna be blue. But I didn't, because I'm a dumb sometimes. Nah, it's fine. First layer, you don't really gotta worry too much. You don't gotta worry, don't worry about it. The white will look better than, like, you can see here, you can still see like the texture of the canvas. You can still see it here, it's just harder because it's white. But you still need to do multiple layers, even on white stuff. And sorry, my thing is not flush with the ground, so it bounces up and down. But then we'll go ahead and use a bit of that. Kind of almost make it disappear a bit. There you go. And we'll just continue to keep, you know, keep going on. Oops, I forgot this little guy down here. Again, just blocking in the colors. I know I'm repeating myself. So if that's annoying to you, you can just mute. But again, I keep repeating myself because I want it to stick into your head. Also, there's not much else to talk about while I'm doing this. So I really just want to, that's what I would do when I was teaching. I really just want to drill these points into your head because eventually it'll just become second nature to you, which is what you want. I am going to put a bit of white out here because it is white. I'm going to put a bit of white here. It's a little bit dry, which is kind of good, just working for me. Again, just building our first layers. May lose a bit of detail, but it's not the worst thing in the long run. It'll work out. We can always just reference our drawing and change. And don't be afraid to change. You know, like I said, I already changed the layout of the mountains to suit me. Change the painting to suit you. Don't let the painting change you. Change the painting. But seriously, yeah, don't get so hung up on like, this is the way I want it to be in my head, and I mean, if you want to do that, cool. But in the beginning, I would say you're much better just going with the flow. So, as you can see, we're building in a nice layer. It doesn't have the detail yet, but you can already see how it's gonna kind of work out when I go with my second layer. And it's looking pretty good. I'm okay with the colors. They're not exactly the salmon's a little bit, but I think I might play with that salmon into the sky and definitely into the water. So just add a little, maybe I'm gonna add a bit of warmth to this painting, which will be good juxtaposition for the blues and whites. Yes, art terms. But yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and do the layer on the bottom. The bottom's kind of a bit easier because it's mostly just, oh, I just realized I like didn't add this part in the drawing here. Do I wanna add it or am I okay with it not being there? I think I'm okay with it not being there. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, I could always just add it in. Like I could always just do this. I could always just do this. There we go. I'll just keep working on that. It's hard because I put white there already, so it's a little mixing with it, but we'll just remember to darken that up when we go with our second layer. So the next is, again, it's mostly all white. Now this does have trees, and I would suggest I'm gonna put those last on my top layer, mostly because they're such a dark color, and I think I'm gonna mix my blue with my purple to get as dark as I can. Obviously, you can just use, you know, a darker blue like they have in here, but if you can't, just mix it. The reason I'm gonna put them on last is because there's no point in me painting around the tree when I come back here. That would just create so much more problems for me. It's better just because it's such a dark color. And I'm sure this is how they painted it. They probably painted those trees last because they're such a dark color, they'll just cover whatever's behind them. So always remember kind of thinking ahead and layering and what's gonna be easiest for you. So we're gonna go, and there's a bit of blue in these little hills. So I'm just gonna paint the edges with blue first, and then I'm gonna come back and kind of fill them in with white. I may add purple in there as well, but I definitely wanna add this blue that they got going on here. Definitely want to do that. And if you gotta, my brush is getting kind of clumpy. If you gotta go and like wash your brush in the sink with like soap, which I probably will do in a little bit, you can do that. It gets clumpy. Sometimes the water just isn't enough. This is also a very old brush, so it's prone to doing that. But don't be afraid to change your water. I actually have a second water here when this one starts to get too muddy like it is right now. Again, don't be afraid to change things out. Like, my napkin's getting really wet, so I have a spare. I have multiple napkins here ready to go because I'm a professional. Again, just stop and get more napkins or change out your water or clean your palette, which I'm gonna do here soon. Don't be afraid to do that. I sometimes just, even artists forget to do that. They try to like work around it and realizing they could just stop and change it. I'm gonna add a little bit of purple in here, I decided, just to kind of mimic the mountains there. Okay. And before I put the white in, I'm gonna put the blue river in, just because the white can go, the mountains kind of layer on top of it. So I'm just gonna go with the dark blue inside here. I'm also gonna add a bit of this. Up front here, and that. Okay. Again, trying to get back some of my detail here. There we go. I may make that darker in the future just because I kind of like how dark it is in here. Although my color scheme has changed a bit, obviously, from the example, but you can always, like I said, do it in layers. You can go back and change colors to whatever you want. Whatever you want. So the last thing I'm gonna do here is go in and paint these hills white. Again, not afraid to get a little bit of that blue and color in there, because I'm going to paint over this. And I kind of like the blue in there. It's in his paint, or this paint. I keep saying his. I have no idea whose painting this is. It's in their painting, and I like it. Because yeah, the colors would naturally go in there. You know, you would have some of the blues reflecting some of the pinks and purples that are in there. So go ahead and get that going. Again, my hills are a little squished because I don't have the room. But that's okay. It still looks pretty good. I think it looks pretty good. I'm liking the way this is turning out. And that's what really matters, is if you had a good time while you did it. Now actually, this actually closes off, which I did not notice. Closes off there. Like you don't see it disappear into the back. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing. And just have it disappear back there. And we're gonna get some of this detail back in here. Some of this detail back in here. And yeah, I think our first layer of paint is coming to an end. Again, if you want, remember to paint to the edges if you're gonna hang this up, if you wish, if you are so inclined to do so. And there you go. This is our first layer. So as you can see, everything that we want is blocked in. So I'm gonna go ahead and probably give this, I did use a little bit of thick paint here. So depending on how thick your paint is will depend on how much time is gonna need to dry. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this a good, probably like 15 to 20 minutes to dry. And yeah, once it's dry, we can go and start applying our second layer. Okay, so I've let this dry for about 20 minutes. It's mostly dry. I'm gonna have to apologize. Of course, whenever I'm recording, there has to be gardeners going on. So there's gardening outside as well as children coming home, running around and screaming. So if you hear that in the audio, I am sorry, but I kind of have to paint now because I need the light. So anyways, I hope that's not too distracting. We're gonna go ahead and do our second layer, again, starting from the sky, mountain, little hills. And for the sky, for the second layer, we have a good base. So now we're gonna have our finishing look. I'm probably gonna do a third layer, but our third layer, keep in mind, is just gonna be slight details, like really getting defined lines or maybe adding a bit of color. It won't be like covering it like we did with this, the first layer and the second layer. So I've cleaned all my stuff, cleaned my plate, got new water, cleaned my brushes, so we're all ready to go. And I'm gonna start with the same colors, blue, bit of blue, this lighter blue that I have, I think it's K. Yeah, Cayman blue. And of course, we're gonna use a lot of white, which I will run out of white probably by the end of this. That's okay, because it was only $1. So for this, I'm gonna wanna keep the same. I really like the way the sky looks, but I just wanna go ahead and try a few things. So I'm gonna try mixing a bit of colors on my palette first. And again, for the clouds, I kind of want it to be a little blotchy. So I may kind of like give a little bit of a texture in there. Kind of doing the same what I did before, starting with the darker color and then going in with my lighter colors. So now I'm going to take my lighter blue and kind of do the same thing. Taking my lighter colors. Again, I'm going to come in with the white. And you can see the colors are a lot more vivid now. That's because I have the base layer. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of, just a little bit of blue in here, so when I put the white on, it has something to play with. So I'm going to clean my brush completely, and then I'm going to go in with the white again. Make sure it's mostly dry. We don't want our brush too wet, otherwise the colors will run. So again, I'm going to start, it's mostly like pure white through here, so I'm going to start there with my whites. Got a little bit into the mountains, but again, we're going to paint the mountains next, so that's okay. Again, really getting where I want it to be pretty white first. Oop, got a bit of blue there. That's okay. So I'm going to go in here next and get a bit of white going on in here and over here. So now my paint has my brush, I'm cleaning off my brush because it had mixed with the white too much. And I didn't like the solid color that I was getting. So we're gonna go ahead and come back with this. And again, I'm gonna try that stippling motion. Kind of getting a little bit of texture going on in there. And really just working the paint. Again, it's a sky, so it doesn't have to make too much sense, you know? It's a sky. It's not like the mountains where there's like a definite dark side and a light side, you know, for the most part. It's pretty, ooh, that's a lot of paint right there. It's pretty much how you just wanna, how you want it to look. I do like this swirl thing that I'm got going on here, so I'm actually gonna clean my brush again. Because this painting is so white, and like most of it is white, and you wanna keep the paint from getting too muddy, you're gonna have to clean your brush often, which is what you'll see me doing a lot. It's a bit of a waste of paint, but you kind of have to when you're doing a white painting, just to keep the color from, you know, taking too much of like the blues in this case. I'm doing a bit of like a little wisp thing, because you know, like sometimes when like wind hits a mountain, it like wisps the snow off of it. So I'm doing a little bit of wisp, just kind of getting, you know, a little bit of, just making it interesting. Seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. Again, this is your painting. You can do whatever you want with it. And if you kind of remember what I did like the pumpkin painting, like the background, I kind of like did a little bit of everything and kind of like saw what worked. But I kind of really like that like crazy texture that's going on up there. I really, really like that. And the only thing I would say that I would add is a bit of like, not a lot, but maybe just like streaks of the purple and the salmon. But I'm gonna wait till my third layer, that like our detail layer, to do that. But for now, I actually really like the way the sky looks right here. I actually really like it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and leave it. You never wanna work something too much. This is a problem all artists, not just painters, but anybody. They just keep working on something. Even if it's not the way you like it, it's best to just walk away and come back. Trust me, it'll help. Even just stepping away for like 10 minutes can do like wonders. So now we're gonna go into the mountain part. So I'm gonna get some purple out. I'm gonna get a little bit of this. I'm not gonna use too much of this salmon color that I have, because I'm not too crazy about it. So we're just gonna need a little bit, and then we're gonna need, of course, gosh, I keep doing that, a lot more white. And again, we're really gonna solidify the colors. This mostly needs to be more purple. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with my purple. I should probably not use this brush, which I regret just putting paint on it, but it's a little too big. Sometimes I forget I can just switch brushes. Here's another like boxy brush that will do just fine, but it'll be easier to like get into the more detailed areas, because at this point we want to kind of bring back a bit of the detail that we lost, just a bit of it, you know. It's gonna touch. Again, I would wait for the sky to dry a little bit for you, but for me, I just don't have that time, so I'm just gonna go ahead and paint. Now I will get some whites, and it will make things a bit more difficult for me, but again, I don't have the time. You most likely will have the time, so just go ahead and just wait for things to dry. Just make your life easier. Don't make it too hard. Hi, tiger boy. There's a tiger sitting next to me. There's a stinky tiger sitting next to me. He's a stinky boy. He's a stinky tiger boy. Again, gonna define some of these lines again. Gonna get in there. I may go ahead and add a bit of this. It's just so overpowering is the problem. It just, I mean, that was barely any, and it just ran away with the color, as you can see. So that's my main thing about this. I do like that what it adds. I do like the bit of warmth that it adds to my painting. But yeah, it just kind of takes over. And so you kind of have to see how your paint is behaving with each other. Like, I don't know why this, I mean, it does kind of have a bit of pastel-y in it. So maybe that's why it's just overpowering the purple like crazy. But it's okay. If your colors get a little bit muddy like here, I'll just wait for it to dry a bit before coming back to that. Also, if you notice, like, not so much on this painting, but really on the other painting, it's happening a little bit here. If you keep painting and you realize that you're actually stripping off more paint as you go, stop painting in that area, let it dry, and then come back to get the desired. Like right here, I keep just taking off more paint, trying to make it darker. There's no point in keeping doing that. Just come back to it. It'll dry in about a few minutes or so. So it's really just come back to it. Go to a different section. I can go over here. It's not that big of a deal. We can go over here. I kind of forget how this was supposed to look. Oh yeah, I had the little ridge, and then it like came darker down here. That's right. Okay. Also, keep in mind with your brush strokes with this, you kind of want to keep it in the direction of what's natural. So like everything's kind of, I'm following the slope of the mountain with my brush strokes. I'm not going like side to side here. I'm just kind of following the natural, because you'll see the brush strokes, especially if you're doing it like thick paint like I'm doing right here. You're gonna see it. So best to just follow what looks natural, and your painting will come out looking a lot better. So there is a bit of blue in here. So I'm gonna add some blues. Oops, got a little bit of white in there, but that's okay. That's okay. So again, just kind of feeling out these colors. We're gonna have to come back with white on all this. So keep that in mind, or that's something you should keep in mind, because again, this paint dries really quickly, so I need to kind of go a bit, I'm going a bit slow, I need to go a bit faster, so that when I add the white to this, it's it has, you know, pigment to mix with, because if it's dry, obviously you can't mix anything with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and start adding a bit of white. We'll start with a little bit. Again, white is so, look at that. Look, it's so overpowering. So, but this is a bit, it is covered in snow. But as you can see, it's already too dark. So I'm gonna clean off my brush. And I'm actually gonna switch this out because it's getting a bit oversaturated with water. So I'm gonna switch out. Again, don't be afraid to do that. I'm gonna switch it out so I can really get my brush dry. And then I'm gonna come in with some paint. Just blocking out the color the way I want. Again, even though this is the second layer, you're really just blocking in color, kind of like the first layer, and getting it, you know, vaguely to look like what you want. Because you can always stop after the second layer if you want. I'm gonna add an additional layer of detail. And it's gonna be minor detail, because I mean, look how, like, you know, it's not really a hyper detailed painting. It's like a shot from a distance. So I'm gonna try to put a bit of white, but as you can see, I'm adding very minute, just little bit of white here and there now, because like that took a lot of white to actually get out. And it actually doesn't quite match. It doesn't have that warmth. That's okay. It's fine. It's fine. It's my painting and I can do what I want. Do what I want. Okay, and then again, kind of like the same thing we did before, I'm going to add a little bit of paint down here for the white to play with. You know, just adding a bit of color to kind of play with when I bring in that white. I am also going to add some blue in there. Okay, so now I kind of have to work fast to make sure that that doesn't dry, so when I put the white, it actually mixes with it. So again, since I'm using white, I'm really going to try to get my brush clean and dry. And here we go. So we want to keep it mostly pure, so here I'm going to keep the white pretty clean up top here where the mountain peaks are. And then once I get closer to the other, oops, shoot, I messed up, but that's okay. We can fix that. I accidentally blobbed my paint here, as you can see. That's okay. We'll work with it. We'll work with it. But yeah, anyways, like I was saying, I want to keep it mostly white near the peaks and off to one side. And then as I get down here, this is where it can mix with other colors, and I don't care. I really would actually prefer it to mix with other colors once it gets down here. So this is a smaller brush, so I'm noticing that I can't hold as much paint as I would like. So keep that in mind when you're switching brushes, that yeah, some paint brushes are going to hold more paint than others. But as you can see, just going through, again, mostly just blocking in color. I can come back with extra little bits and add a bit of, you know, blue to this if I want. You know, and then just come back with white. So as you can see, it's getting like way more defined, I would say. And that's kind of like what we're going for here. You know, as the first one, honestly, I think the first layer looked more interesting, but again, I'm more into like abstract and things like that. But as you can see, the first layer was blocking. This is more just like a more advanced blocking, I guess you could say. A more advanced blocking. Okay, so this time I'm gonna remember not to paint that little part right there because it's part of the foreground now. But I do want a little bit more color in like all of this down here, so I am gonna add a bit more, just a bit more color. Again, you have to be really careful when adding color to white because it will just absolutely take over colors. So again, I'm keeping the motion of the mountain here like this nice. I'm always making sure that I've kept it directional, you know, as you can see the mountains, I'm going this way. Okay. And trying to get some of that detail back. Just a bit of that detail that we lost. You can also use this to kind of separate, like this is where this peak kind of comes down, so I'm using a bit of color to separate. Just again, giving a little bit more detail because we're getting closer to the final product. So the more detail, not always the better, but you know, hi boy. Where's the tiger? Pet the tiger, pet the tiger. Okay, so what I want to do is add more color to this down here because this should be, I actually went a little bit Actually a little too hard with the white down here. I put too much paint. So I'm gonna just use another empty paintbrush. I'm just gonna try to take some of that paint off. There we go. That way I can add more color to it. Yeah, because I want this to be, stop. Oh! Anyways, crisis averted. So I want to add a bit more purple down here to this one specifically. And I want to add some blues down here too. Some blues. And this kind of actually, there's a lot more whites up front here, so I need to add like a thin layer, but really mix it in. You can add a little bit more detail there. Okay, just really making it look more like a mountain. With varying degrees of color. Again, I'm gonna come back in with a little bit of detail and just kind of spice it up a bit. But for now, yeah, I think I like where it is. You know, one thing I don't like, which I'm gonna try to fix, is like the relationship right here. It's got like a little weird little like thing there. Stop, boy. Tiger Boy's licking my leg and I don't like it. Don't like it. No thank you. No thank you. Okay. So I'm gonna try to fix this by making this peak a little bit. There we go. Kind of disappears into the back there, but I kind of like that, especially like, oh, I forgot. Totally forgot about this guy here. That's right, he's here. Whoops. I totally forgot about it. I was like, oh, like that one that disappears into the background. And I remembered. All right. So this one kind of, you know, resembles the back, but it does have a bit of, it does have like a little bit of an outline here before disappearing, which I like. A bit of an outline, and then it like full on disappears in the back there. So we're gonna go ahead and make it disappear. That, so it's still there, but not quite. Okay, so that looks pretty good for now. Again, I'm gonna come in with detail and kind of finite some of these lines once this dries. I just need it to dry. So we're gonna go ahead and start with the hill part now. Doing the same exact thing. Ooh. I'm gonna start with this. Oh no, I put a little watermark right there. I'm gonna start with, like a bunch of napkins. I'm gonna start with the little back part here that I had neglected, and since I want it to be dark, I'm gonna go with like a mixture of purple and blue here, just because I have to like get it pretty dark to paint over the white that I put there when I forgot it earlier. So, and then to make it not look like the water, I'm going to add a bit of white with some purple. Again, kind of stippling it, kind of like give that texture, that bumpily texture of. So now, sorry, I didn't realize my head was in the way there. Ooh. Sorry about that. I often, when I do things, like I put my face directly in it, which isn't great, but that's just the way I do things. So I have not noticed if I did that earlier. If I have, I apologize. It was not my intention. But there we go. Now we have a little bit of the foreground, background, whatever. Again, constantly have to keep cleaning my brush because I'm using white. And that's just how it is. So again, I'm gonna probably start with the white here. And I actually should start with this one, because this one goes behind this this hill here. So And since this is in the front here, I really want to get some texture in there, because technically if you're looking at this perspective-wise, this is closer to you than the mountain. So the mountain should have less detail and the front should have more detail. So I'm gonna go ahead and just stipple here, as you'll see. I think I'm gonna go with the dark color first and kind of get like the outline of the hill. I'm gonna swap in between using like purple and the blue. And I'm gonna put it like throughout a bit first, just to get some color in there. Because I mean, it is supposed to be snow, but as you'll see on his painting and then actually in life, there'll be a bit of reflecting going on. So that's what I'm trying to somewhat get when I do this. Also, the texture of this being like stippled and this being smooth, especially with the sky, is visually interesting to me personally. Again, I'm gonna wash my brush because I feel like my white isn't as clean as I want it to be. But that's okay. Just keep going in here. And you can have a mixture of like stippling and like, you know, some overarching like sweeping lines if you want. You're kind of just trying to, it's all, the painting is mostly white, so you want to get some separation. Now remember, we're gonna have trees up here, so it's not too important. It's not super important to get too much of a differentiating line. I think that's probably why the artist did put trees, honestly, is to help visually separate the background from the foreground. So yeah, we'll just go in, just add a bit of detail. You know, now that I think about it, I probably should be doing the water first. Darn it. So again, keep in mind layering. I should have done the water because the snow hills are kind of on top of the water. And I think I did that in the first layer and I just didn't think about to do it this layer, but that's okay. We only did one hill and we can work with it. So for this, I want to start with my darker color in the back here. And I kind of want to like get a little bit of like the ripples of a water, which would be like going back and forth. So I am going to go a little bit, you know, add a tiny bit of color and go horizontally. I'm going to actually fill in this first because you probably can't see it on the camera, but like I can kind of see the canvas poking through and I don't want that. So I'm going to first just kind of darken all of this. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring in a bit of like, a little bit of like river ripples using like various colors here and there. Maybe put some on the edges here. I definitely want to put a little bit of white into the river. Just a bit. That's a little bit too much actually. That's okay, we can get rid of that. Again, this water kind of like is reflecting a lot of the colors in the painting. So I kind of want to put a little bit of everything in there. Like I do want to put some purple in there. Maybe I'll just cover up this little bit of white that I wasn't exactly happy with. And we can go over here. We put in a little bit of the lighter blue. Again, water is kind of like one of those things where, yeah, it has like certain rules, but for the most part, you know, it's an amorphous blob, very much like the clouds. So don't get like too hung up on it. It's not super important. I mean, unless your painting is just water, but we're not gonna worry about that here. We ain't gonna worry about that. But yeah, I'm mostly just darkening the color, getting it how I want. I do want it to be darker in the back and a little bit lighter in the front, so that's why I'm adding like more of the greenish blue that I have up here in the front. do I want some of this pink in here? I'm debating whether or not to put a little bit of the pink. I think a little bit of it. Don't. Okay. Maybe a little bit of the pink, you know, just around like some of the edges maybe. Again, just trying to bring some of the colors all around. Doesn't have to be a lot, it can just be a little bit. Doesn't have to be crazy. I do think perspective-wise that this needs to go out more. I think it needs to be wider, but which is why I'm extending it out here. So, okay, I think that's pretty good. Now we can go back to doing the hills. Same thing. I'm gonna do the exact same thing that I was doing before. Just taking a bit of the blue and kind of stippling out a barrier that I'm gonna have between the two colors. Going alternating between like blue, the dark blue, and the dark purple here. Again, not being afraid to like mix in a bit of the border color. Not super concerned about that. And maybe scratching in a bit of color down here before I go for the white. And I'm gonna have to clean my brush before I go for the white again. Gonna have to clean it. Okay. And yeah, then we just take the white, and we're just gonna try to get the white on there first before I start like playing with it. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and stipple this just like I did before. Again, it just adds a bit of nice texture, and you can kind of see the color that I painted underneath poking through. And it just makes it a lot better than just having, you know, a straight white color. It's just a lot more aesthetically appealing to look at. Okay, and then I'm gonna go here, get some white on there. Again, same process. I'm gonna stipple the border. Various shades. Come in with this. Because again, it is mostly supposed to be white, but and as you can see, it still has like a defined separation between like the two mounds without like a harsh line, which is what I was going for. Just trying to make it as invisible, but also visible as possible. See, you can still see that there's two mounds here, especially when I add this this little, like you can even, like, if you want to, you can go back and add like a little bit of line definition if you want to. Not super important, but I'm gonna put like a stick there. There's like a stick popping out. Again, I believe it was put there as a way to separate the foreground from the background. But there's just one little hill right here, and that will be our second layer, and then we'll go back with some detail and finish it off. Again, we added a lot more paint this time, so it's gonna take a lot more time to dry. So depending on how much paint you put on it will determine the amount of time it will take to dry. But we'll go ahead and finish this last little bit. I know this painting took longer than my last painting, but that's just because the last painting was a pumpkin, which was very simple and easy, and this just has a lot more detail, a lot more layers. It's a more complicated painting. So if you want, you could go back and watch the other one. and you see how to do a little more simpler painting, but still looks pretty good. And there we go. Like I said, I'm gonna wait and give this about 15 to 20 minutes to dry, or less if it dry. I think it's gonna take about 20 minutes, and then we'll go on to our final detail, finishing up, putting the trees, and adding a little bit more color and pop here and there. So here we go. Okay, so now I haven't quite let this dry as much as I would like to. It's been about 10 minutes. The reason I'm kind of going forward is because it's kind of stormy out today, and so I'm losing my light quicker than normal. Daylight savings time again. I got some new water. I didn't clean my palette because we're just gonna do the detail stuff. And so the detail stuff is really just adding a bit of color, defining some lines. We're gonna add the trees and the little things, the sticks and shrubbery. It's still very wet. The sticks and the shrubbery. We're gonna add all that good stuff, but I was looking at it and honestly, I liked the way it kind of looked before, blockier. Again, that's just my personal preference when I did the first layer. So I may do a little risque things, but art's about taking risks. I really miss the pink. I really miss the pink that used to be here. So I'm gonna try to add that back. But the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna use a big brush because we're not really, it's already pretty layered. Like there's no canvas really popping through at this point. All the colors are really strong. So I think I'm gonna use this paintbrush to add the details. What I really would like, I like the sky. I'm pretty much good with the sky. Maybe this area is a little bit weird, but what I want is to add the pinks and the purples up here, but just kind of like outlines. So I'm not really sure how that's gonna look, and I don't know exactly how I'm gonna feel about it, but again, art is about taking risks. It's about taking risks. So I just wanna add like a little bit of purple and such up here. Just a little bit. This is kind of in my way. Again, just trying to define, you know, some sort of shapes out here because there's not a whole lot of discernible shapes. What I really want to add is this, which I'm kind of scared to, is add a bit of the warmth of the pink into the sky, and I'm a little concerned about doing that. Just because, like I keep saying, it's for some reason like a very powerful color, although it's not showing up too bad here. So maybe it'll be okay. Maybe it'll be okay. Again, if you wanted to, you could just, you know, you could just leave it as is if you wanted to. I mean, minus obviously adding the shrubbery, but at the risk of overworking this, I'm gonna go ahead and keep doing what I'm doing. Again, I kind of want a little bit, gosh, kind of want a little bit more shape into some of these clouds. It just kind of got a little like messy, I think, up here. And so I just want to add a little bit more definition. I mean, it just looks just as messy, but I do like it. I just wanted to add a little bit of, just a little bit of warmth up here, just to kind of match, not a whole lot. Like you don't need to go crazy. Again, at this point, the detail is all up to you, how much detail you want to put. I just want to get, I mean, you can't even really see it on the camera. You can see it better in real life, but yeah, I just added just a tiny bit of warmth to the painting, to the clouds, just by adding just like a little bit of red here and there. Really, not the red, the salmon. Really just added a bit more of warmth to the sky, which I really like. I do want a bit more white up here, more so I kind of like let the color get muddy up here. And I would like to add a bit more white, just maybe even just pure white. Again, just adding bits of detail where I want to make things look a little bit better. Maybe some white up here as well. There we go. So you're not adding a whole lot. Again, probably can't even really see much of a difference, especially through this camera. But you'll see more detail like what I'm talking about when we go to the mountain, which we're gonna do now. So one thing, I think the mountain in the back is kind of pretty much perfect. The only thing I would add probably is maybe a bit more like, gosh, I keep doing that. A bit more of this, and then come back with the white and like really hide it a bit. Just again, I'm just adding a little bit more texture to it. And yeah, I like that. I like that much. Maybe I'll take some of this sky blue and kind of just a little bit. Kind of liked it when it was less visible. There, but not there. There we go. Yeah, I like that better. Okay, not too much there. It's really in the mountain, and I'm kind of debating whether or not to bring the pink back, because I miss it. I do. I miss it. So I'm gonna bring it back. So I'm gonna do something dangerous. I'm gonna use the big brush. Yeah, we'll just see how this goes. It's either gonna make it horrible or I'm gonna like it. Okay. Made it horrible and I don't like it. That's okay, we can fix it. We'll use a smaller brush. It was too aggressive. It was just too aggressive. Okay, so, but that's okay, because we'll keep some of the orange in there, which again, I thought I muted out the orange a little bit too much, so I'm kind of glad that it's back. Oh, it looks really bright on the camera. It's not as bright in real life. But I kind of I like the orange back. I like having it back. Or the salmon. I keep calling it orange, but it's really more of a salmon. Yeah. Maybe I'll come in with a bit of blue. Add some blue on there that we haven't added before. Why not? Give it a little bit more something to work with. Again, this is when we're just, I'm not really gonna paint over most of like the white and stuff. I'm just gonna go ahead and add like accents. You know, I'm gonna bring back some of this purple here that was lost. This line of purple right here. Adding a bit of color, a little extra color here and there that wasn't there before. I'm gonna add a little bit of back to here. And I think what I didn't realize until now, there's like none of this salmon color in here, which is interesting. So we're gonna add a little bit of that into it. Again, I think I just liked the warmth of it and I kind of missed it. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring some of it back. This is, and in the detail, you're gonna be using more of like pure color. Like you're gonna not want to like mix it as much because these are like more defining details. So as you can see, I'm kind of like dipping straight into the paint and just kind of keeping the color like as pure as I possibly can. And yeah. Maybe we can come back and bring some more of this detail back in. A little bit of detail. Never hurt nobody. I do want to kind of create a bit of like contrast between here. Again, just kind of faking detail with using line work. No. Okay. If I had more colors, like I said, like in his, like he's really dark blues, I would definitely try to darken these lines up. But I tried mixing the purple with the blue, and it really just doesn't get any darker, unfortunately. We can keep trying. Yeah, it really doesn't get that much darker, unfortunately. So like, we can come in here and, sorry, my face is in there again. You know, just add a little flair to things. Maybe add a little detail. Like this little like thing that I did right there was actually a mistake, but I liked it. And so we're gonna keep it. This is okay because it's supposed to kind of wash out. Now I do want to add more detail in the snow, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little concerned about the snow detail, just because I'm worried that if I do that, I'm gonna have to redo a bunch of the white, but we'll see how it works out. I am running low on white, so I am a little concerned about that, but we're gonna go ahead and just take a bit of blue back here and kind of do something like that. Like that looks nice. That actually looks really good. So it worked out. Nice. Nice. I was worried about that. And we can keep doing stuff like that, like we can do it here. Oops. Again, just adding a little detail. I know I want to define the edges a little more. I want to define this edge a little bit. Up here. Maybe get this a little bit more white. Again, in your detail layer, you're not really like repainting it like we did the first or second layer. You're really just finding little places to define. If you notice, I'm really just defining lines. And then of course, we're gonna add the detail of the sticks and the trees, which hopefully the purple and blue will be dark enough to handle that. Not 100% sure they will be, but we don't got no choice. I thought they would be. They're so dark, but not really working for me. Not doing it. So I would just get really a dark blue, or getting an ultramarine blue like I have, and a burnt umber brown, a dark brown. I wouldn't recommend using straight black, just because black is such a strong, like really strong color. So it's it just comes out too much. And it's really good if you're like using the black color for like emphasis, or that's like part of the painting. But if you're just trying to get a dark color, I'd recommend not using just pure black, like manufactured black, but to mix a dark blue, like a ultramarine blue with a burnt umber, which is a dark brown, to make a black, because it will make it black, but it'll just make a nice, like it'll have like a warm tone to it, and it'll just make the black color a lot more palatable versus being so staunchly like dark. Often people use black and it just kind of dominates the painting, kind of like white will if you're not careful. It kind of does the same thing. So again, just be careful when using, like, again, the straight pure, like pure white, pure black, because those colors will just take over. They'll just take over and your painting will not look anything like you want it to look. So, all right, so I think I'm pretty good here. I'm not crazy about this area, but I'm not exactly sure what to do with it. Mostly because I just don't know. I'm not super crazy about it, but I don't know if adding white, I don't think is gonna help me here. And now see, I don't wanna do that. Now I'm just gonna leave it. Again, if you're not sure about it, just leave it. Just leave it. Just leave it alone. don't do anything because you're just gonna mess it up, and then you're gonna feel upset about it. And so it's best just to walk away. You can always come back to it. I can always come back and paint over this if I want to. It's not like the end of the world. So we're gonna go ahead and go into our first kind of detail area. So we have this section like back here, which again, because I painted it white first, it kind of never regained like super dark like it's supposed to be in the painting, but that's okay because we're gonna put trees over it. Trees. So I'm gonna, again, I'm trying to mix the blue and the purple here, and it's not really mixing. It's not really making that much of a difference, which is weird. But we're gonna work with what we got because that's what we got. So I'm gonna do the trees, and you're gonna make sure whatever you're painting on is dry because you don't want it to mix. We really want it to just look like trees. Is this the best brush I should be using? No, it is not the best brush I should be using. I should be using this little one. Okay. So trees, it's pretty simple. I mean, you're just building a rough outline, so it's not like super important. So like what I'll do is I'll just like put these little like sticks, as you can see, where trees are gonna be. Just as, again, kind of like a marker. Back here, they're all kind of like so grouped together. It doesn't like really matter. But then, you know, trees how, again, I'm gonna keep getting color. Ooh, that's a bit much. You know how Christmas tree, or not Christmas tree, but pine trees, you know, they go back and forth. They get thicker at the bottom. Again, this is like way in the background, so it's not like super important. You get all the detail. It's gonna look like trees regardless. So just kind of get the rough idea of what we're going for here. Just keep going back for paint. It's working out. It's, again, I wish I had a much darker color. I wish I could have had a brown, but obviously for the challenge I could only have 5 colors. So hey, again, sorry, I'm putting my face here. Look at my face. Sorry, I keep doing that, but that's just how I do art, bro. Just let me do art. Okay, and then we'll maybe put a little one here. There you go. It's like in the background, like you can't even really see it on the camera, but we're gonna do the same technique for some trees up front here. So I'm pretty much okay with the snow, except for the only thing I would like to change on the hills is I would like a bit more texture on this one specifically. I kind of put texture on all of them except for this one, so. But we can fix that. We can fix that right now. But again, it's important to, if I'm gonna do that, I should do that first here. Just because there's a stick that's gonna be here, and so I need this to dry before I put the stick in. It's very important. Like, even this is still wet. Like, it's still wet. I'm doing this to try to take some paint off. You can always do that. You can always use your brush to take some paint off. Again, I'm rushing because I am losing light. And I just want to add a bit more texture to things. Which means when I go for the painting part, I'm going to have to add a lot more coats and just go for pure paint. Okay, so here we go. Actually, there's a little... I want to fix this part. There we go. Okay, so now it looks like snow. And now I'm going to take this brush and I'm going to get rid of this because it's way oversaturated right now with water. Put a new napkin. No. Okay, so for this isn't quite dry. maybe I should start over. I'll start over here since it's dry. I'm gonna do the same thing again. It's not as dark as I would like, but you know, you just gotta work with what you got. So we're gonna start here, and again, I'm gonna start with the line. Start with the line like that. To have the base. Same thing. Start the line. So if you want to get like a nice point, you can like smush your brush and kind of like mold it into more of a point. And that's what I'm doing to get like a little nice, less thick edge here. And we'll do 3, mostly just because he did 3. Rule of 3s. Do a little thing here. And then, yeah, kind of just building out the same. It's nice because it's just one color. So there are like special brushes you can get that are like flat. I actually have some. That do foliage very well. And so right now I'm just kind of getting like branches and like making sure I'm keeping space in between. And then I'm gonna come back and kind of like stipple in. But because these are so like close to each other, I'm gonna do them at the same time. Again, it's like a silhouette of foliage, and it doesn't have to be super perfect because foliage isn't perfect. Or is it? Okay, so now my plan is to kind of like just kind of stipple in. Again, sorry, I gotta put my face in. I gotta do it. I'm sorry. I gotta get in there. Again, just kind of stippling in. Where I put like the sticks and stuff. The makeshift sticks. And of course it's going to be more full on the bottom here. But as you can see, it's starting to look like a tree. It looks more like a tree in real life than it does on here. It's funny, weird things like this line right here looks way better on camera than it does in here. I mean, it looks fine, but like the tree looks way better here than it does in there. It's very bizarre. But yeah, just go with it. So when he did it, he chose a really dark color. Now the problem with mine is it's dark, but it's still like the lightness of stuff underneath is still like kind of visible through it, which is kind of ruining the effect a little bit. But you know, that's all I got is 5 colors. So I really wanted the pink. Not sure if that was the best choice for these 5 color paintings, but anyways, continue on the process. Same process. Just going through and then just brush is getting a little clumpy. So if your brush is getting clumpy, just go ahead and rinse it off, clean it, and then come back. There we go. It will put a little bit more of a pokey thing up top. You can't even see it in that camera. But yeah, that's basically the process. So there is a stick here that goes out. I'm not sure if this is the best brush to use for that. No, I think I'm gonna use this brush. Yeah, I'm gonna use this brush. A little bit of a stick action going on. Got some sticks. And there we go. I'm gonna go ahead and just cut to, I'm just gonna put a tree here and the stick, it's the exact same thing. I'm just gonna cut because I've been going for like way too long already. So as you can see, I basically did the same exact thing I did on the other side, only you'll notice that, again, like I was saying, I didn't have a dark enough dark color with the, you know, the 5 colors that I chose. So the tree kind of just blends in with the background, but you know, that's part of the thing that comes with the 5 color challenge, so. And here is the final product. I really like the way this turned out. I really like the mountains and the sky. The front part got a little, I'm not gonna lie, a little kind of meh. I'm not too crazy about it. I did, as you can see, end up adding snow to the tree so you could actually see it in the shadow of the mountain, which I then had to put it on snow on the other trees. It did make it visible, made a little pop a little better, so I am glad that I did do that. But overall, yeah, I think it looks great. I really like the sky, I really like the mountains, I really like the color choices that I made. I'm glad I added that pink salmon back into it. I think it really made the colors pop. I know this was a long video. I'm trying to figure out the best way to do these because I plan to do more in the future. And I don't know if what's better for you guys learning wise, whether it's better to do like a fast sped up time lapse with me doing a voiceover like I did in the Gengar video, or if it's better like I did in this video to just show the entire process of me, you know, going step by step and just talking through it. So let me know in the comments below which way you prefer. Do you want the time lapse version, or do you want to do the whole thing like now, even though it's a longer video? Just let me know. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment below, or this tiger boy will step on my face. He's gonna do it regardless. He always does it while I'm sleeping. Never stop creating, and I will see you someplace else. Oh, licks. That's nice. That's nice. That's nice.